Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number CL4010-6-600. This is a single-acting spring hinge, steel-based, primed for painting. Very typical, common, well, it's common. I've certainly seen these many times. Strangely enough, where I only seem to see them often is in New York City, as a matter of fact. I'm not sure why there are so many there, but Bommer must have had a pretty deep influence into a lot of the older buildings, well, older by today's standards. There are some hotels that are decades old, and they're just chock full of these hinges. And it's a testament to the quality of the hinge, because generally when they're being replaced, it's because they're decades old. Anyway, the CL part of the part number means ball tip, is what it means. The 4010 is a reference to the type of hinge that it is, single acting spring hinge. The -6 specifically means that it's a reference to the size, and we'll go over that in a moment. The -600 means prime coat, and this primed, ready to be painted, available in different architectural finishes in the website, and many others are available on a special order basis. These are generally made to order anyway. Now, there is, let's just go over some of the regular specifications of this hinge. Easily adjustable spring tension by this tension collar, and we'll go over that in a moment. They're non-handed. This can work with either left-hand doors or for right-hand doors. Non-template holes, that just means that these holes don't follow any pattern other than the fact they are non-template, and this hole pattern is specific to the Bommer hinge. Made of steel. The 600 part of the part number means two things. It means it's steel-based and that it's primed. Now, there's a guide below this video in terms of how many hinges you're going to use based on the size of the door. And I've seen these hinges on really large, heavy doors. 1 3/4 is the proper thickness for using this hinge. If you're dealing with doors up to 3 foot wide and 125 pounds, go with 2 spring hinges. If your door is heavier, up to 155, go with 3 spring hinges. If you get into a situation where you've got doors that are 4 foot, 3 foot 8, 3 foot 6, 3 hinges for sure. I'm a fan of having more spring hinges rather than less. It's not for the obvious reason, as much as it is for the testament of experience, saying I have installed these, and I know for fact that when I am not underpowered in the spring department, I get more predictable, more reliable sort of closing effect to the opening. It could be very likely that this door, it's mandatory that it closes by either code requirements, or it could be a janitorial closet or a laundry closet on a floor of a hotel. And those doors need to be kept closed. Couple of reasons. You don't want your clients seeing what's in there, plus you don't want them going in there. The staff is not to leave it open, that sort of situation, so spring hinges are really handy for doing that. It could be that you have a fire-rated application and it requires the door to be self-closing. I have found when I've got more spring hinges rather than less, I get that predictable reliability, because a spring hinge has to do a lot of work. It has to do the work of getting the door from a negative sort of energy stopped and then started to close again, but it has to be able to overcome the air pressure, it has to overcome the friction of the latch bolt as it hits the strike plate, and it has to get all that done and do so safely. When you've got less spring hinges on a door, you usually have to set the tension so high just to get the door moving quick enough so that you hope that inertia carries it all the way closed. And that's not really a predictable way, because that door, you might have different seasons where you got windows open in an application, whereas you might otherwise in the winter have different conditions. So having more spring power on reserve is handy, because you can share that load amongst more springs. You can get it in such a way where, I liken it to a tugboat. They don't go very fast, but they can pull a lot of weight. And when you've got more springs and more stored energy in more spring hinges on reserve, you don't have to get that door slamming. You can get it to where it's going to close reliably, predictably, and enough torque reserved in the spring power the last few degree so that it will overcome everything else it has to overcome to get the door latched. Now, setting the tension. First of all, let's back up. Let's go to the template. There is a link below this video to the template, and it shows everything important dimensionally about the hinge. The template that is there is this identical hinge, except that that template doesn't show ball tips. Otherwise, everything else is identical. The height of the spring, or the leaf, is 6 inch, and that's where the 6 inch dimension comes in. If you have an 1 3/4 door, this is very likely a candidate for you. Those holes for the hinges are referred to on that template as well, and you can refer to all of that. You're going to get screws for everything. It's pretty assumed that this is going in the metal door, metal frame, as that's the way that it's packaged specifically for this order. If you have need for some wood screws and some metal screws, by all means indicate that in the comment field when you're ordering it so that we can ensure that it comes packaged properly. All of the other dimensions pertaining to this hinge are there, so I won't beleaguer those points, except to say that your leaf thickness is 105 thousandths on this hinge. Everything else is drawn out there. Now, moving on to the instructions, there is a link below this video to the instructions as well. And what you're going to see there is a reference to how to go about installing this. What they're basically saying is the tension collar has to be pointed towards the top of the door. And as you have that condition, you'll insert the tension rod, and this will be included with your order, at least one. You'll rotate it clockwise. And as you do that, you reveal those new holes. And it's into one of those new holes that you'll insert the included tension pin. This order happens to have 2 hinges on it, so there's 2 pins. You only need 1 per hinge for this type of hinge. Rotate that and you'll insert that tension pin, and then it'll rest back onto this collar here, and that's how you set the tension. So let's just go through the steps of this installation. Step 1, install the hinges to the door and the jamb. At this point, you've got the door hung pretty much. Tension collar may be positioned up or down, but keep the tension collar in the same direction. If the tension collar is pointed up, rotate this clockwise. There's generally an arrow of direction on these, but there isn't on this one that I can see. It's clockwise. If you install it with the tension collar down, rotate it counterclockwise. Fasten hinges securely with the screws provided. Step 2, place the door in the closed position. Insert the tension lever into tension collar and rotate the tension collar. Insert the tension pin into the open hole, and the recoil of the spring will press tension pin against the shoulder of the hinge leaf. 3 holes of tension is recommended, but more may be required to close the door. What they're saying is don't expose more than 3 holes. They're saying that you might need more to get the door closed. They're not specifically saying do not exceed that, but the truth of the matter is so many of the hinges by Bommer say not to exceed, or there are some other hinges that it will specifically allow you to exceed that. If you have to crank this up more than 4, I would definitely say you need more spring hinges. Step 3, if closing action of door is too fast, decrease the tension. If closing action is too slow, increase the tension. There it is, 5 holes of tension maximum recommended. If door or hinges squeak or bind, they may not be fitted properly and may require extra lubrication at the hinge joints. I have never really found that to be a case or a scenario. This is the hinge joint where those pieces are moving against each other. You can see that. And that is everything that they are talking about in regards to this single-acting spring hinge. Mortising for this, if it's a wood door, wood frame, that's going to be a fairly simple scenario. If it's a new installation, you're simply going to want to make sure that your axis of pivoting is compatible all the way up and down. Okay. I guess the last thing I'd like to show you is the Bommer logo. And right above it, it says Made in USA. The fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. Any questions on the Bommer CL4010-6-600 single-acting spring hinge with ball tips or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us.